It is our pleasure to listen next to Penn Paramenter, and listen to this bio. This is pretty fun. No, really. Responsible collecting of wild seeds. Penn Paramenter is a high-altitude gardener, seedswoman, and student of the earth. She is married to Cord Paramenter, an awesome partner, gorgeous man, and master blacksmith. Together they own and run a sustainable greenhouse design company, Smart Greenhouses LLC, and Penn grows seed for her business, Miss Penn's Mountain Seeds. She is a mother of 3 sons, oh boy, and an outdoors woman. Penn forages wild food, hunts big game, fishes preserves, maintains a huge organic forest garden, and occasionally makes dinner. At home, you can find her in her greenhouses as well as in the wilderness, nose to the ground, butt in the air, trying to identify Colorado natives. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Penn Paramenter. Penn.
All of that was true. Okay, let's see about this. Maybe move it down a little. Before I dive into pictures, which I teach in pictures, so everything will be laid out for you, the nuts and bolts, I want to talk about collecting in the wild. So I've got this tiny picture of a piece of paper from the Forest Service. Okay, so here's the deal in national forests. Each one is different, and each one has a list of products that you can take for free for personal use. If you say personal use, you're going to take it home to your garden, you can take anything that's renewable. Seeds are renewable, right? Leaves are renewable. Boughs of a tree are renewable, but not the tree. Permits are for things that you're going to take. You're going to take a resource, and permits are for if you're going to sell something. So if you're taking acorns for seed so that you can grow trees for yourself, no problem. If you're taking acorns to make beautiful wreaths and sell them at crafts fairs, you need a permit because you're going to be taking a lot more of them, right? So the list, so when you go to a national forest, and I'm working mostly in the San Isabel National Forest, but also the BLM. And the BLM also has its rules or restrictions, but let me tell you, for personal use, it is incredibly generous. They will allow you to take an amazing amount of stuff per person per day and a total per year. Now, I do not want to see people raping and pillaging the wilderness. Like, I want you to be responsible about what you take and how much you need, right? So when you're going to if you're going to kill a plant, let's talk about OSHA. OSHA has been wiped out in all kinds of different areas. We have a friend in Arizona, Thunderfoot, who has huge stands of OSHA in Arizona. He digs them up, brings them to Colorado in places that have been stripped, and replants them because the bears use them as medicine as well. So animals know how to do this stuff, just like we do. They probably are the ones who taught humans. So OSHA, you can use the plant, the aerial part of the plant, is the same medicine. There's lots of room up front up here. Come on, be brave, be bold, come on. So learn how to use the aerial part of the plant. Or, better yet, go back in the fall and collect some seed and get it established on your own property. Now, OSHA is can you not hear me? The aerial is the plant part. If the OSHA root is what's used for medicine mostly. If you dig the root, you kill the plant. So if you're going to do that, like there was a talk on foraging, so I'm sure they went over how to do that responsibly. Otherwise, you're going to wipe out the stand. And there's medicine for everyone, including the bears. Seeds is a great answer so that you don't wipe out a stand, okay? So if you go back and you look, where does the OSHA grow? Well, it always grows by water. It always grows by water. Well, that doesn't mean you can't grow a plant that grows by water if you don't have a stream or a pond on your property. But you do need to think about creating an environment that that plant can grow in. So learn about it. Google how to germinate OSHA seeds, or how, what is the habitat, and start learning, and then start creating that, and see if you can't get some plants growing on your own property, and now you can harvest your own OSHA, always making sure to leave some so that the stand goes on. The answer is seed, right? Because seed will adapt to wherever it is grown. So as soon as you start growing it, it's learning your spot on the planet. It remembers that information, takes it forward into the next generations. And that's with your vegetables, that's with wild seed, with whatever it is. So if you're taking it out of its environment, you got to try to emulate its environment. There are so many plants that need to live with other plants. They are parasitic. Everyone wants a paintbrush. They like to move them when they're in flower. Worst time ever to move a plant is in flower, and never do it in the National Forest. It's illegal to dig up plants unless you have a permit for specific plants that forest agrees that you can take, okay? You cannot collect seed from wilderness areas, from research stations, because they're doing documentation on plants. I have this somewhere. Let me see. I'm so sorry I got this in front of me. But National Forest and BLM, like I said, each National Forest lists its products. Further south you go, it could be corral poles or teepee poles are included in what you either have to get a permit for or what you don't. Maybe further north there's other things that we don't think about that are good resources for people. When you're trying to build soil and you don't have deciduous trees, the National Forest does. So don't rape and pillage. Don't leave a big bare spot under the aspen. Like fill a hefty bag with some leaves and then spread it back around, because that stuff is gold, but it's also gold to those plants. So the BLM also, it has different verbiage. It says recreational use. So that is for you and your home garden and your own place. Again, I get permits and licenses to collect seeds because I'm a seed seller. But you don't have to do that if you're using it for personal use. So when the ranger comes and asks you what you're doing, you use the words personal use or recreational use, okay? I'm just taking some for my own home garden, and you'll be good to go. And it's so abundant. Seed is so abundant. All you need is a handful of seed, and you have thousands of seeds in your hands. So you can get these plants started on your property and start taking care of your own stands. I'm taking care of stands in the wild, because I'm not going to take more than I should. I was taught to take no more than 10 to 30%. And 30%'s a lot. If it's a small stand or there's only a few plants, I'm not taking any, because I want to encourage that to get bigger and better. Maybe I'll help distribute the seed. When I'm collecting seed, I'm always dropping half of it, which happens anyway, which I'll show you in some of these pictures. And that's helping. And then I'm stepping around, so I'm stepping it into the ground just like the deer and the elk do. They knock the seed head over with their leg, and they step on it with their hoof, planting the seed, making a little divot in the ground so more water and leaves fall on top of that and plant that seed. That's how nature plants wild seed. So that's when you do it. When you have wild seed on your properties, no matter what it is, in the fall, watch these things, and I'm going to show you when to know that it's ripe. Spread that seed around your land, walk on it, walk it in, just like you're the deer. You're just helping it to disperse. The birds are going to eat some, so leave some for the birds, because they'll disperse it too. But you're enhancing your own stands by helping to spread the seed on your own property, or friends or people that you know, and you say, hey, could I take a couple of those seed pods and get them going on your property? Because we're all neighbors here. This is the same environment. So they're going to grow here if you're seeing them growing down the road. Okay, and we'll cover like when they're ripe and all of that. But mostly I want you to know, let's see if I can read this. So pine nuts. Pine nuts is a food crop, but it's also a seed. And you can grow your own trees from seed, which will work a lot better than a lot of things. So let's say pinyon nuts. You do not need a permit. Quantities are limited to a daily maximum of 5 pounds and a yearly maximum of 50 pounds per household per year. To get that many pine nuts is going to be, and they're on a 3-year cycle, at least in my region. They used to be on a 7-year cycle. So you want to stock up so you have enough for 3 years. But that's a lot. And a lot of times it's per person of the family per day. Like rocks, you can take rocks and boulders, up to 250 pounds per person per year. Don't do that to me. 50 pounds per day, which is roughly 2 5-gallon buckets, and then check with the forest minerals specialist. So obviously taking minerals, crystals, things like that might be different for different forests. When you go to the forest, you can search forest products, but if they don't have this chart listed, then you call them or you go in. They pull it out for you and they go over it with you. That's how when it says you can take the aerial part of plants, so herbalists, you can cut the leaves and the aerial tops and the flowers, well, the seed is included in that. But you can't dig up the plant. And you know, when you're digging up plants in the free nursery, that is our world, you are going to lose at least half of them. And I'm going to show you plants that are parasitic. The paintbrush cannot live without blue grama, penstemon, sage. When you take it out of its environment, it feeds off those other plants. So it's not going to last long if you can even get it through the first few winters. So this is how you introduce these plants. When I sell you paintbrush seeds, it comes with a host plant. It's usually always blue grama. Sometimes it's penstemon. So that's just to give you an idea that if you lift something, you're really damaging this incredible abundance that we have. And people don't know, not us, but some people don't know how to control themselves, okay? Because we love plants and we want what we see in the mountains to be growing in our own backyard. Just study it. Make sure you know if that plant can grow. Elephant head, everyone loves it, and it's an incredible medicinal plant, but it's parasitic to rushes and sedges, and it has to grow by water because it feeds off the roots of those plants. If they're not present, it's not going to go. So now you've taken, or even if you've dug it up, now you've taken something that's going to die and you've taken it from the population where it lives. And you know these animals know what plants that they need. And just a side note, which I'll talk about, but delphinium, which is a powerful drug, belladonna, right? The elk eat the seed pods to get high. And I know this for a fact through my own observation and because I know how powerful that drug is. And I will talk about that, including monkshood. So I wanted to cover that National Forest and BLM and that responsibility of you going out and doing that. The first thing you do is identify. You got to learn to identify. And it's your job to go out in the wild and find flowers and scout for them and photograph them and document them and write down where they are. And then you come back and you check. And once the seed pods are ready, it's time to come back and collect that seed and bring it home and do what you will with it. So it is super fun, right? So I was identifying since I was 10 years old. And then when the seed business happened to me, because seed tends to follow me home, I already knew all these plants. And our teacher was a wild seed collector as well and sold wild seeds. So it was so easy for me to go and find all these seeds, these plants that I'd already knew. And I got the permit. It was super easy, and it's very generous. But for you, for your home garden, that's the national parks and the BLM is our land, and we just need to really take care of it and be responsible. Okay. Let's see if I can get, all right, I'm going to come over here and proceed. Okay, yeah, that's the office. So I'm in the National Forest here, and it's a fun day in the National Forest, okay? It's my job, and sometimes I will tell people this. I will yell across the mountains, "This is my job, 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 job," and giggle. All right. Okay, so that's just me. That's Mariposa lilies. Remember, that's a food. And but it takes 3 years to build the bulb. And you got to dig up the bulb and kill the plant to eat it. But it's great survival food. So if you get these established on your own property, you're investing in that wild food on your property for a day when you might need it. That's the thing. I grow a pharmaceutical garden, but I'm not an herbalist. So I invite herbalists to come, make medicine, make things with it, and then give me one, or give me even just one sample, because that way, I mean, I can't do everything, right? And everybody has their role. So I love it when herbalists will make medicine for me. All right, this is the other office. This is a place where very, very dry mountains come together with a pond. Now the ecosystem is wild. There are going to be desert plants and cactus, and there's going to be water plants all around that. So the diversity, wherever there's water, this is actually a man-made pond from back in the day when they were logging an area. And so it changed that ecosystem. And guess what? The seeds are there for millennia. So before that was there, the elephant head was there, but there wasn't a pond. So once the conditions are right, the plants will grow. This is the time of year when you're out looking for seed. It's when the aspens are turning, and not everything. The early seed is ready in June, right? Early flowers are ready in June. But it's a pretty nice day to be in the forest or to be in the BLM when it looks like this. And then, you know, a cheesy grin, but like, you know, I'm wearing wool here because it's cold wind in November, and this is when the seed is flying. And when the seed is flying, that's the time to collect it. It means it's ripe. That's why it's releasing from the plant. But the winds, because the wind blows the most when the seasons change. Okay, so in the fall, the wind is blowing more. It's going to blow that seed. So timing is everything. So you should see me on windy days. I'm like, damn it. Or if it's going to be windy next week, I'm like, I got to get out there before the wind blows them all away. All right, this is in my car. That's my 1930s lunch pail. Ziploc bags because they'll hold more seed. I mean, it won't fall out. I do use brown paper bags also. And hunting orange. It's hunting season. Don't get shot because, man, the most dangerous thing in the woods is another hunter, right? I'm sorry, but it's the truth. If it's not me or my sons or my husband, right? So I am, you know, collecting bearberry on my hands and knees, and I often wear black. And there's bear season up there. Oh, look, there's my little lunch break. Usually I have my little speaker playing Rocky Mountain High, and I'm not even kidding. There's the kinnikinnick. Okay, this is bearberry. This is Arctostaphylos uva ursi, right? I love that. The bearberry. So I'm on my hands and knees wearing black during hunting season in the bearberry, right? Collecting this seed. This is a wonderful evergreen ground cover. I'm laying down, and you know, it's everywhere, and this picture does not show, but I just want you to see I've got my orange on, baby. I'm not going to mess around, okay?
I have just a quick question. Wait.
Oh.
We want all the questions into the microphone because otherwise we won't hear it on the videos. And then it's a very weird, out of context situation.
Thank you. Since I heard of the concern and care for wildlife, but it's needed for the bear for the fall for them to survive over the winter, yet you're harvesting. So can you explain that balance of you're taking, which means they're not eating it, yet keeping it in that balance, so there's some for you and there's some for the wildlife, and how do you foresee that balance of keeping it that in balance?
So perhaps you came in after I said this already. So I take 10 to 30% of any stand. This is a huge area of bearberry, and I only take maybe 10%. If it's a small area, I don't take any. So I am very strict with myself about what I take and how much I take. But some years are better than others, and there will be a massive super bloom of something, and other years there won't hardly be any berries. I won't take any on those years. And that's what I was telling them early on, was that you got to make those decisions to take care of those stands. So then I see this. This is how close I was to putting my hand in it. That's how it goes through the bear's body. Now this, they don't even chew it. So I should have collected this seed, because this is that thing where germination is going to be better after it has gone through the gut of the animal that eats it and poops it out. So the next time I encounter this on my hands and knees wearing black during bear season, I'm going to scoop that up and bring it home, because it's going to have a better chance of germinating, because it's gone through its natural process. But isn't it interesting to see how they just gobble that stuff down? They're the coolest.
Why do you wear black?
I just happen to wear black. The question was, why do I wear black? I just happen to wear a lot of black, and I'm saying if I'm on my hands and knees in the kinnikinnick during bear hunting season, really good chance of getting shot. So I put my orange on. Put your orange on. There's so many seasons, and this is what it looks like on a four-wheel drive road. Yes, I have to have a four-wheel drive where I go, and then I park and I go, right, with a pack, and then I come back to my car. But I always know where my car is, always. And this is what it can look like sometimes. So now I'm in 4 low, right? Trying to get somewhere because it's the time of season and the seed can still be all over the place. If we get an early snow, I'm still out there. So I parked my car here, and that whole field behind me was full of fringed sage, which is a wonderful plant, absolutely wonderful plant, medicinal, beautiful. And the seed was perfectly ready that day. So when you pull on it, it just falls into your hand, it shatters. That's how you know the seed is ready. If you pull on it and it's just crispies, it's already gone. So you move on and you find a stand that's in the shade, because that won't have made the seed until later, right? It won't have bloomed until later. And this was the last day before that road closed in that particular spot. I go all kinds of places, but you know, I'm always sad when the road closes, because I am with my lunch and my car blanket.
Consider running into the mountain bike or something.
Have you ever seen how big the San Isabel National Forest is? No. It goes from La Vida to Leadville. Okay, get yourself some good books. The book on the left is fairly recent, and it is phenomenal. Lots and lots of edibles in there. Most plants are medicinal, okay? Right, we know this. So the Denver Botanic Garden put this out, and the reason I like this book so much is because of these maps. This will get you in, like, where you are like, which species is this? You're trying to identify something. Well, it doesn't even grow in Colorado. It's for the western states, but you can quickly see and eliminate it if you're trying to identify. So I really like this book, and it's fairly new. So 1 book a year. I keep 1 book a year for everything I do in the garden, in the seeds, in the business, whatever. And I'm not like journaling necessarily. I am making notes about what I planted. I make my maps for all my garden beds. And while I'm driving down the road, you know, I'm like mile marker 22, highway 69, you know, behind the giant boulder, there is whatever the plant is. And I'm making those notes because, as I said, you have to scout, you have to find the plants, you have to identify the plants, and then you go back for the seed, right? And by the way, easements alongside roads, there's that 25 feet. It's actually 50 feet from the center of the road. A lane is 25 feet, and then 25 feet into the ditch is easement. Now, I don't do this in front of someone's property without talking to them. I wouldn't be collecting. Mostly people don't even know what's growing there and they don't care at all. But I would care if someone was collecting rocks or seeds in front of my property, even if it's in the easement. It's okay, it's just be aware. Well, when you're in the middle of the mountains somewhere along a highway, there's a big easement and there's a huge stand of something, you have the right to be there. When the police pull over to talk to me, they're checking on me to make sure I'm okay, and they absolutely know that I'm not breaking any rules, okay? So easements are even in alleyways. Again, be mindful, be respectful of people's backyards, but when something is abandoned, technically public buildings and public places, you can take seed from those plantings. Again, typically they're going to be using petrochemicals on those plantings, and so I'm not taking seed that's been grown with petrochemicals. If you're getting herbs and herb seed, we don't take stuff from the side of the road because of all the pollution that comes off the road and washes down and gets into those plants. So it all depends on where that is, how close it is to the road, but it is legal for you to do that. So 1 book a year, and these are like all the books over all the years, and I will go back and I will reread something and remember, oh right, on this road or that road, this stand, I'm going to go see if that's still there. And again, my entire garden is in there. So every map of every bed, because I know what varieties I'm growing, and then I won't forget. This was my dad's loop, and after he died, I found that in the top drawer of a man's dresser where there's like 1,000 quarters and a bunch of like weird stuff, like screws and wing nuts and this loop. So it's kind of a mess, but I absolutely love that it's like that. Getting a good loop or magnifying glass, there are some seeds you cannot see with the naked eye. So, and I sell some of those seeds. So I have to make sure there's seed in the chaff and the debris. Sometimes I have to send you that chaff because I cannot separate seed that small. And I just try to leave instruction. This is me with 4 or 5 bags. In this particular forest, I'm collecting 4 or 5 things that grow together. Sugar bowl clematis, nodding onion, harebell, Mariposa lily. They all grow in the same environment. So I got 4 or 6 bags in my fingers, and I'm just going along and grabbing some seed. This is the Easter daisy. This should be blooming very soon in April. But thankfully we have snow cover on our side. But you'll start seeing this. This is Townsendia escapa, and it is a lovely little beginner plant. It is a composite, so it's going to make a puffball like a dandelion. And they all are going to make puffballs like a dandelion. Anybody in the composite family. So the wind, right? So this is what it looks like in the blue grama. You can barely tell it's there. It has more flower than leaf, but you can see these tiny buds starting to poke out. They're going to be coming anytime now. It's time to start looking for them. This is what the flower starts to do. Then it covers itself in flowers. They're very sweet and very early. Rock gardeners adore this plant. And that's the first puffball. It'll come right off perfect. You can take the whole puffball, and there are good years and bad years. So I haven't had a year of Townsendia in probably 3 or 4 years. I've had to discontinue it because there is no seed of it in my neck of the woods right now, and that's okay. It'll be back in profusion on a different year, and the wind won't blow the day that it's doing this. These are the puffballs rolling across the ground, but staying intact. So I can just pick them up, okay? But you can imagine how few seeds you're going to get from this. So when I have a big bloom, these grow on my property, then I am going to be able to get a good amount. And as I was saying before, when you're collecting, you are spilling seed everywhere, and it's rolling and it's going. Question, Wendy? Yeah. I can repeat the question if you want.
Thanks. Speaking of puffballs, so when I collect arnica, and you pick it fresh, so I like to let it just dehydrate ever so slightly before I put it in oil, and it puffs, right?
Yep.
So, but is the seed mature at that point? Because it happens right away.
Yeah, really good question. And arnica's coming right up here. Let's see if it's next. No, it's not. This is blue grama. Okay. You know what? Can I answer that when we get to the arnica? Because I'm going to show you exactly what you're talking about. Because it's a composite. It's like a dandelion, right? It's a survival tactic. As soon as you threaten a plant, it's going to try to throw its seed. Okay, that's what plants know to do. This is blue grama, growing in these circular patches. It's one of my favorite grasses in the world, and it ties our soil down, and it provides hosts for so many other wild seed. So, you know, it doesn't look like much in winter. It grows in a circle, and that's what it starts to look like when it starts to green up. It can be dry till July because we didn't get any rain, and then one rain, and it's green the next day. It's the most resilient grass you have ever seen, and it hosts the paintbrush. I mean, it's one of many, but, and this is what it looks like. There it is dancing with Navajo tea. But when I was a child, I called it the eyelash grass, right? It's so beautiful. And here's a patch of it in the tall grass out in my meadow, just like it's just making itself its little home, saying, you know, whatever to the big grasses. It's like, we're here. And it makes this beautiful flower. I absolutely love it. There's the flower close up. So after those seed heads dry, then all those seeds will be hanging on that in the same position. And when you take your hand, they'll just fall into your hand. That's how you know they're ready. If you tug on it and it doesn't shatter, it doesn't coat, it's not ready. You like things to ripen on the plant, even though every plant has its own survival system. Oh, this is wild cosmos. Its real name is Hymenopapus newberrii, and it is a silver-leafed plant, which all silver and gray leaf plants are a signal that they are drought tolerant and they can grow in lean soils. So I threw it in there because I didn't see the spider until I took the picture later, and I was like, oh, he kind of matches. And that's what it looks like growing out of the rock. It's so drought tolerant with a silver little rosette. I love this plant. I think it should be in every garden. All right, do you guys know this plant? This is Prince's Plume. This will grow down here in the barren flats, no problem. It probably does. It grows around Pueblo and the desert. It is a desert plant. Stanleya pinnata. I knew it all my life, and I adore this plant. Okay, this is the Rocky Mountain zinnia, Zinnia grandiflora. And it's just starting to age. You see those darker centers on some of them? This is how you're watching. You're watching, you're taking pictures, you're documenting the date, even though every year the date will be different, right? Because every year is different in Colorado. There's nothing repeats ever. Ever. Don't even believe it. So now you can see some of them are starting to turn tan, right? You can see that color changing. It's not ready yet, but it's getting close. This is actually a color picture in January, and all that seed is perfectly ready. There's snow on the ground. So all winter, technically, I can be collecting seed. But remember, stratification is cold treatment. Most wild natives need to go through cold to wake up. So when the seed packet says stratify for 30 days, either plant in fall so it can go through winter and wake up as it will in the spring, or you put it in the refrigerator for X amount of days, and then you try to start them, because you're simulating winter. So this seed already has some winter on it by the time I collect it. But still, I'm going to provide that information to say how long do you stratify something? Some things want to be stratified a really long time. So planting in fall, wild seed is always best. Sometimes I will do both. I will plant in fall, and I will also try to stratify and start some of on my own and set out plants to cover myself, because something will happen, because the takeover of the ground animals with all these warm winters we've been having, they're going to take them down, right? So you want something that you cover your bases, put seed in and try to start some plants. That's just a tip. But when in doubt, plant in fall, because then it will do its thing, and it may not show up for 3 years. It may not show up for 5 years, because conditions in Colorado are constantly changing. So if it doesn't like the conditions, it's not growing. I had pony bee balm on my property in waves everywhere. It didn't come back for 10 years. I know this because I photographed it in 2013, and I photographed it again in 2023. I didn't see one plant. I looked for it every year, and then it was an en masse bloom. So that seed stayed perfectly in the soil for 10 years. That's what I'm telling you. The soil can keep the seed better than any other way. Plants will show you the bud, the flower, the seed head, the empty stalk, all at the same time. So you can identify it. You can identify what the seed looks like. This is sugar bowl clematis. And if you tug on those Dr. Seuss heads, they need to shatter into your hand like nothing. And it takes them a long time to ripen and release. So when you tug on them and they're not coming, I move on and I come back later. I've come back to these stands 3, 4, 5 times. It's still not ready. So this is one that takes a long time to release its seed. Okay, we're going to go into penstemons. Wendy, I swear I'll get to arnica. This is a ground cover penstemon. Delightful. Grows very high. But all penstemons, once you learn a family of plants, like the composites, they're all going to make a puffball. Penstemons are all going to make the same kind of seed head, even if it's a teeny tiny one or it's 6 feet tall. This is Brandegii, Penstemon Brandegii, and there's no filters on these pictures. So this is stunning. It's also called alpine penstemon. I get it up way up high. But the seed head, this is Penstemon virens growing straight out of the rock. We love our penstemons in Colorado. It's the largest genus in North America. And look at just waves. Some years it's waves. Other years it's a few plants. Penstemon seed becomes more viable as it gets older. So the older the seed is, the better it is for you. It has a protective coating that outgasses. And as it's moving through the sand and the rocks and the gravel, it's releasing that and freeing itself. It's a survival technique. All seed has them built in. Penstemon palmeri. Have you guys seen this down here? It grows down here. It can be 6 feet tall. It is absolutely stunning, and it's evergreen. The base is evergreen. I mean, to see this thing, and it's fragrant. To see this thing in the wild is amazing. So that's the seed head. And look at how it's growing straight out of rock. Okay, and it's a silver green leaf. highly toothed, and it stays evergreen. But every penstemon seed head is going to look like that. And there's going to be a capsule. It's going to be green and tight and sticky at first, and once it dries, it's going to turn tan and brown, and then that capsule is going to open up, present the seeds. They present their seeds in all kinds of ways. In a little cup full of seed, you can tip it right into your bag and dump the seed in. Sometimes I cut the seed heads, and sometimes I just bend them into the bag. Half of it goes in my bag, and half of it distributes, and then I walk on it to try to help it connect. There's Penstemon strictus, our most popular, the one, this is along a roadside where there is a massive bloom. This goes on for about 2 miles. So me taking 10% of this seed, I don't take 10% of this seed because I get so much seed in like 15 minutes, I'm good for like the next 5 years. But that's what the seed looks like. And that's when it's ready, and not before. Some seed you can cut green, a lot of seed you cannot. There's the Rocky Mountain bee plant. We all know it, we all love it, right? This grows here in this valley, it grows all over Colorado. It has good years and bad years. It's the wild cleome. If you've ever grown spider flower in a cottage garden setting, this is our wild. It is edible in the early spring, and it's a dye plant. Indigenous folks used it for so many things. So it's one to definitely research. And it's an annual, a reseeding annual. Well, here, let me show you. This is what happens. We let them pop up all over our garden because it is called Rocky Mountain bee plant. The bees, the whole thing is moving and buzzing, and it's bringing pollinators into your vegetable garden. So I'm letting them grow here. Plus, it's a useful plant. It has many uses. Not that it needs to be anything other than beautiful for me. And attracting pollinators is good too, but I'm going to let these plants grow in my garden, and they're going to look like that, and they're stunning. But when is the seed ready? So when they're green pods, people will cut them all the time with green pods. They want to ripen in the pod. They have a notoriously low germination rate on their own, so that's why they make a whole bleep ton of seed, because they need to perpetuate themselves. So they make plants that have low germ are going to make a lot of seed. But you see the one pod that's starting to split? It's tan and it's starting to split. You run your hand over that and it will shatter into your hand, and now you know it's ready. But the green ones won't. So let the green, you're going to make many passes. You're going to come many times, and you're going to take the seed that's ripe. This is cowpen daisy. It's named that because wherever there's disturbed land, it comes. It has the most beautiful silver leaves and hundreds of flowers. I mean, it is incredibly showy and is a very underused plant. And anything that has the word weed in it or cowpen in it, people are afraid, oh, it's going to do too well and it's going to take over my yard. Yay! Right? We're in the wild here, people. These plants know what to do. They help to restore that land again. It's absolutely glorious. Its real name is Verbicina enceloides, which is just fun to say. That's what the seed looks like when it's ready. Now, there's the ones on the left and the right are not ready. You can still see green and you can still see petals. If I tug on it, it won't come into my hand. But the ones that are in the center, you can see some of the black is already gone. It'll shatter right into my hand. That's when the seed is ready. This is a wildly prolific plant, and when the seed is disturbed, the ground is disturbed, it'll show up with or without you putting seed down because it's already here. Wonderful plant. This is not I don't know if Antenaria is a medicinal. Does anyone know Antenaria? Do you know it's pussy toes? So it's a little low-growing ground cover, but I'm showing it to you to show you what happens when the wind is blowing. Okay, so that's its little close-up. It's starting to make seed. Now you can see that fluff on the sides. That's the seed, and it's so tiny and microscopic. And my husband was helping me. Look at that. While he was picking it up and trying to put it into a bag, of course, 90% of it was blowing away. He goes, well, I'm getting like 10% of it in the bag. I'm like, that's how it works. We're helping to spread it. And this is where a lot of it is already gone because this is, again, a composite. So it's going to throw a puffball and they're going to go. They just sometimes come in a different form.
And there are pussy toes growing up.
Just a second.
Hi, my name's Amanda.
it should be on. They
There,
found you. Yeah.
there are pussy toes growing up above at 11,000 feet near Breckenridge that are incredible, native, and I've heard they are good for headaches.
Great. So most plants are medicinal, right? I mean, this is where all of our medicine comes from. So you research, right? But showing you how to collect this seed when the wind blows, yikes, look at that. There we are trying to get that in a bag. And then you get this much seed. So, and you know, these things all happen at once. And as soon as the wind blows, it's gone, it's over. So I can't always offer it because a lot of times nature takes it and that's fine. If I'm there in a moment like that, yippee. But, you know, this is a biennial. Okay, remember biennials grow the rosette the first year and then it blooms, sets seed, and dies. So that's how it propagates itself, right? So it this is a plant growing in my garden. It grows right out of the rock. It's a really great, actually, cutting flower, but it's just this wildflower that nobody pays attention to. And that's how the seed presents itself. Once that black is gone, it's over. So once those pods crack open and present the black seed, it's time to gather it. But it's a very small window. Timing is everything in this business. We have made it to the arnica. This is Arnica cordifolia. There are many arnicas in Colorado. They are all medicinal. And some say, I've read that cordifolia is, the medicinal properties are no different than the other one, the one that everybody uses for medicine. What is it, Wendy? Montana? Okay, maybe, I might be thinking of another one. All right, it grows in the deep forest, way up high. I'm about 10.5 here, and it's in a mixed forest, and it loves a shade. It'll grow on the edge of the forest. So arnica beckons me to roll in it. It speaks to me, and any herbalist will tell you that there's a relationship with plants, and you need to listen. You need to spend time with these plants and let them tell you who they are. This plant says, roll on me, I'll make your shoulder pain better. Roll on me, I'll cure your left hip that's been out for 6 months. Okay, because it's that muscle trauma medicine. But it tells me to do that. I don't, because they're so soft and beautiful. This is heartleaf arnica. It has leaves in a perfect heart shape. Look at how that beckons you up into that canyon. It's just like, come on, come roll in me. Now, you see the seed heads on the log? So this is one where you need to make many passes, okay? Now, what Wendy was saying is that she's taking the flowers for medicine. They're going to immediately throw their seed just like a dandelion does. That is its survival mechanism. It's been threatened, so it will make seed in the bag on the way home, right? My herbalist friends put it straight in anyway, even though, you know, they figure it's in this metamorphosis, but the medicine is still there. Okay, I think it's still going to be ripe seed because it is built this way. It is built to save itself when it's threatened. So I'm going to make many passes, and I'm going to come and take the puffballs that are ready, and then I'm going to go away and come back, and by the time I come back, the winds are going to have blown most of it away. Some years I get a lot, some years I get a little, and some years it's like this where I hit it where so many of them are in puffball. But this is like a forest. Acres and acres and acres. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. So again, taking 10% is hardly anything, and I rarely ever have enough stamina to take 10% of stands that big. There's no way I could take that much seed. So there it is up close. When you pull that, it's going to just shatter right into your hand. All right, you guys know Calypso bulbosa, Father's Day. This is a protected and endangered orchid that is here in Colorado. Any plants that are endangered or protected, you may not take. You may not take the seed either. So it requires a certain fungus to be present and a certain insect to be present at the same time for it to pollinate. If you lifted this plant and took it home and you're like, ha ha, I got a rare, fabulous orchid named Fairy Slipper, it's not going to live. It's very specific to where it needs to grow. It grows by rotting logs in a deep forest in full shade. It has a very specific life and a very short bloom time. Puts up one leaf per plant, and then they disappear. So even collecting seed, I'm not touching this thing. But on Father's Day, we go. and we worship them. You have to lay down on your belly to take these pictures. They're so tiny. Absolutely gorgeous. Don't mess with these plants. Let them colonize, let them do their thing, and go visit and worship them and dance naked under the moon. This is elephant head. Okay, elephant head needs rushes and sedges to eat off its roots. So if you have a pond and you have water and these plants are growing there and you add this seed, it's probably going to make it. You can probably propagate these plants from seed, but then you want to put them where they can find their friends, or go to ponds and creeks and rivers in the woods and find rushes and sedges and bring that seed in too and see if you can't grow those together. Make sense? That's what it looks like when it's ready. And I will just tip those right into the bag and let it fall out so there's still plenty left behind. This is purple prairie clover. All clovers, right, are legumes. They are fixing nitrogen for the soil. They are long-lived, and they put down a deep taproot and live for a very long time. It grows wild on my property, and these are just eye candy pictures of 21 was an amazing super bloom for us. And this is Liatris, the blazing star, the skyrocket gilia. There's some sage back there. There's the Liatris, which is really cool because it blooms from the top down. Yeah, it blooms from the top down instead of the bottom up. It's really cool. This is Mentzelia. This is we call it evening star because blazing star is Liatris' common name. I call them nicknames. There are many that repeat themselves across the country. This is so fragrant and it's so wonderful, and it's how they learned about Velcro, because the dried up plant material has the little hooks that Velcro has, and they learn to make Velcro from this plant. And it's incredibly fragrant and wonderful, and it looks like this scrappy weed, and then it blooms in the evening and blows your mind. So some plants are, it's try not to judge a book by its cover. Okay, and judging plants, they're all here for a purpose. They're all beautiful in different ways. They're all mingling together and helping one another. Because some people are so judgmental about plants. Okay?
Back to the evening star, what was the genus species on that?
Mentzelia. Mentzelia. And that one is nuda. Because it's nude on the stem. And then there's another bigger one that grows down here, down lower. And that one's decapitala, Mentzelia decapitala. And that one's like 3 times the size. The flowers are huge and they open in the evening. So they're a great moonlight flower.
I want to say something real quick. You get 10 minutes till 12:30. But if you want to keep going and other people want to sit here until 1 o'clock, cool.
Because, yes.
Our next speaker starts at 1. I built in a half-hour break, but if you guys want to just keep going, that's great.
We'll get through this, and then we'll have questions, I promise. Okay. We all know yarrow. This should be your #1 pharmaceutical plant. If you're going to build a pharmaceutical garden, yarrow. Yarrow and rose. So gardens in England began as medicine gardens. They didn't have gardens for beauty. They had them to collect medicine. Yarrow and rose would be the first thing any garden put in because they're medicinal. Rose is a food as well. It's an amazing medicine. So get yarrow in your garden, and if you have yarrow, dance naked under the moon with it. I mean, and it's a moonlight flower too. It's fantastic. I mean, it is so medicinal. Like, it can cure and help so many things. The list is too long to list. So learn about and love your yarrow. I mean, someone got stung by an ant. We immediately crushed up some leaves, stuck it right on that ant, and it was done. It was stopped. Immediately stopped the pain. So, I mean, it is a powerful medicine. There is arnica and rose in the woods. This is Rosa woodsii, or rose of the woods, or woods rose. Love this thing. I sell the seed for it, and it runs by runners. So when people are scared of plants doing well, put it somewhere that it can make a stand and not scare you if it starts growing in your vegetable beds. But it is our native rose, and they grow often, these plants, these medicinal plants grow in the same environment. So arnica, and look at it, it's in almost full shade. This is a rose plant, and those rose hips are food for all kinds of animals and for us too. It's a huge hit of vitamin C. I teach my boys yarrow, plantain, rose to be life-saving plants if they ever got lost in the woods or to help with a wound.
With the rose hips, if you want to like eat it as a food, can you just take the seeds at that time, or do you need to wait for the hip to be in like a certain state of dryness in order for the seed to be viable, or how does the seed collection of that one work?
I dry them first, and I still use the rose hip chaff or pieces, but I want to let them be on the plant as long as I can, especially a berry, because I want to make sure that that seed is ripening. But I bet it's okay even when they're wet. As long as they're red, fully red, not like greenish and red, then I think the seed is ripe. If you were to take it fresh, to use the rose hip fresh, you could just wash the seeds off. But I dry them and then I crush them, and they crush really easily, and the like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 seeds pop out of one rose hip. Okay? Was there another question? No. Okay. There it is up close. It's a big show early in the summer and then it's over, but the plants are beautiful and the rose hips are beautiful, so it gives and gives and gives. This is Rudbeckia. Question back there. Another question?
I was curious your opinion on fermenting berries, and to a lot of times, like with vegetable seed, you'll ferment fruits to get the germination inhibitors off them.
I do not, and so for what? For the seed, or for you to make something? I have not fermented berries. I dry them and I either send them to you whole, because that's how nature plants them, or I will break them up. And I will tell you to do either. Maybe try both. Does anyone know about fermenting and seeds? I don't know that it would hurt them, because will they ferment on their own on the ground? Probably not, because the bear will eat every single one and lick the ground. There'll be lick marks, right? So like I get very few berries because the critters know when they're ripe better than I do. I don't know the answer to that. So try it, learn. Yes, I dry them mostly. I have done some where I release the seed wet, but I found that it's better. I like to let it dry, and it's got the nutrients of the berry around it to maybe help that seed ripen. That is not science. That is my observation and my intuition saying that that's what I think it should do. Because if it fell into a crevice, that's what would happen. It would dry and the seed would benefit from that fruit, and then it would have everything it needs to grow. Rudbeckia hirta, black-eyed Susan. Seed takes forever to shatter. So this is what it looks like, and if you can't, it's really pokey. It's like echinacea. If you can't crush it easily, it's not ready. This is one that needs to ripen for a long time. I will be into late November before I can take these seed heads, because they're not shattering and they're holding on, and I'm like, nope. And again, every year is different. If they bloomed early and made seed earlier or later, I might not be able to get it at all, because I got to wait for it to ripen. Mariposa lily. Right? This is a food source. You can eat the stem and the bulb. From seed, it takes 3 years for that bulb to form, and then it will begin to flower. It's an investment in the future. But this is a food source of wild food. Like I offer salsify, which people think is a weed, right? Well, it's a food source, so I make sure it's on my property. I'm kind of building and allowing those plants to grow there that are food and medicine. I don't care what anybody calls a weed. A weed is a plant you don't want in your garden, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have a purpose or medicine or food. Look at that. I mean, you could take pictures of these all day long. Is this me beeping? No. Okay. Okay, let's get to delphinium. Oh my gosh, when you encounter these in the wild at 10,000 feet in an aspen forest and they're this tall, it is a sight to behold, okay? This is Delphinium occidentale. There's that bee. The color is incredible. Look at all those blooms on one plant. Belladonna, this is a hardcore medicine, okay? This is like, you need to know what you're doing with some of these medicines. You need to be careful. Then when I say the elk eat these seed pods to get high, I am not kidding. So they will have these seed pods, and when they're green, before the seed is ready, there will be elk tracks all around it in a circle, and they will bite the little seed pod off with their little lips, but not even bend the stem. And so they'll be missing, right? And there'll be some up high, and there'll be some, and I've taken pictures of it before, and I'm like, this is what I get, right? After they're done partying. Because I have to wait for it to get dry, and by the time they're done, they've already partied hard. Because belladonna is like an intense drug. So they are 800, a bull is 800 pounds on the hoof. They're eating some powerful medicine here, and it's not for any other reason than to dance around the meadows at night. I'm telling you, I know it. That's what the seed heads look like when they haven't eaten all of them. Sometimes there'll be 1 or 2 of those left on the stem, and that's all I get. And delphinium seed does not have a shelf life. You have to replace it every year. So some years I can't offer it because if I didn't get there, the seed does not hold. Like I said, some seed will hold 100 years, a wild seed especially, but not delphinium. This is globe mallow. So all mallows are medicine, but this is the small leaf globe mallow. And this is one that's famous for having buds, flowers, seed heads, and empty seed heads at the same time. So you can identify it. Look at the beautiful presentation of that seed. This is what I'm saying. It is miraculous how that shows you the seed, and look at that design. I mean, nature is incredible. Some of them are empty. Some of them are full of seed, and you can tell, you can see. So I brought home, this was a huge stand, and I got there at the right time. I mean, this was miles along a road. And I didn't want, if it's in like a tub or bags, I don't want it to mold. It's hard to mold things here in the arid West, okay? But I laid them out on here. And this is mostly the aerial part of the plant, very little seed. The jar, right, Kai? The jar is about this much full of seed in a jar. And it's, there's a lot of plant material here. All right, this is the bush morning glory, Ipomia, and this grows down below. It's called man root because it creates a root as big as a man's arm, and it lives for hundreds of years, the same plant. The plants I get seed from, I know for a fact from friends of mine that it's at least 80 years old, these same plants. That's what the seed looks like, and they're big, and once they are really dry, they shatter very easily, and this is one where we're going to just do handwork. We're just going to pop them open with our hands. We're not going to step on them and crush them. We're not going to put them through a machine or anything like that. We're just going to do a little handwork. And these are not necessarily easy to get established. They want to grow down low in the heat, in the barren flats, in the heat, and patience is required. That plant will live forever. And yes, they do open in the morning, and they are stunning in the wild, which is really where they belong. Wild iris, blue flag, highly medicinal, beautiful. Likes to overtake low meadows where there's water, but I also see them in sunny meadows up high in deep forests. This is how the seed is presented. So once they have cracked open and you see that big red beautiful seed, there you go. Oh, we know we love our showy milkweed. We got to save the monarchs. It's such a glorious plant. There are edible parts of milkweed, and I'm sure there's medicine in milkweed. It can't be that glorious and not be medicinal. Speaking to humans, say, hey, I can fix you.
I want to say real quick that it is 12:30, okay. And if you want any food, like this might be the time if you wanted to catch the next talk. Anyhow, you can keep going.
I swear I'm going to get to the end.
We will stop you at
okay
at 12:55.
All right, and I can power teach. I really can. I've done it before. So, okay, these pods are edible, I believe, when they're green and young. Somebody that knows more about that will have to tell us. But these were just about ready to crack, and I put them in the bag to see what would happen, and they all blew. And in the bag, so they didn't all blow away. And this is another one with no shelf life. The seed has to be fresh every year. So when you're trying to get it established, you go get some every year, and you'll see when they're flying. When they're flying is when it's time, and they want to be stratified. They want to go through winter. They want to be planted in fall. Yucca, food and medicine, right? And textile, right? You can make all kinds of things out of it. This is a wonderful plant. Oh my gosh, they make so much delicious, delectable food with this plant. And that's when the seed is ready. And they're super easy to germinate. My friend told me, I said, so what's the shelf life on a yucca? And he goes, you could have it out in a barn for 25 years, getting hot and cold, and then drive a car over it, and it'll still grow. I'm like, all right. There's monkshood, okay? This is aconitum. Monkshood is a very intense plant. It is a hardcore medicine. Again, one to know what you're doing with it. And I always say plants tell you who they are. And it's called monkshood because it looks like a monk's hood. And a lot of times they're almost black purple. So this one's a little lighter, but I still captured the shape. And they're 6 feet tall or taller, and they grow by the creek. And you're eye to eye with them, and I swear you go, whoa, okay, you're serious. Like, it has a presence that tells you. Plants tell you. Chamomile tells you that you can't kill yourself with chamomile. You could drink it all day, every day, and it won't hurt you. Other plants that are bitter, we're going to tell you, this is dangerous medicine. Be careful with this. Be watchful. Monkshood is also called wolfsbane. Remember in Harry Potter? What's the difference between, when Snape goes, what's the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane, right? Anyway, sorry, you had to be there if you're not a Harry Potter person. Anyway, I was collecting the seed, dried seed pods that look a lot like the delphinium, and I wiped the sweat off my face, and my lips went numb. And I went, oh, right. And now I use gloves. And I'm touching the dried seed pod. Right? There's got to be resin on the outside of that. My lips went numb. Oh my God, it was terrifying, but it was all right. I was like, wow, the power of these plants is so cool. Gaillardia, we see it alongside the road. Again, you're going to have seed heads that are almost ready, seeds in flower that tell you who they are. They are not ready till they shatter in your hand. And look at these. These are our wild native plants. They're supporting our wild native pollinators that we need here. All right, lupin is another story. Again, lupin is a legume, and it is going to throw its seed the way all legumes throw their seed. They have a built-in spring-loaded pod, and when the seed is ready, the pod flips back with spring-loaded and throws the seed 30 feet. Okay, so you have to go to the lupin many, many times to get the seed because they're gonna ripen one at a time. So you're gonna come and you're gonna find it where it's right about ready to explode, but it hasn't yet thrown the seed. I think I got some pictures. Now this is a different species somewhere else, but that's where the seeds are turning dry. This is where some have spring loaded already. You can see how they twisted. They're all built in. We brought some lupin home. It got into our dry house. We opened it up, and they started popping from that dry air and throwing them 30 feet down across our house, pinging off the walls. Or like threw a sheet over the top of them, like, oh my God. So this is a survival technique. This is how it propagates itself. So they're looking, up close. Right there, those two are ready to go. And here my friend is. Now, you could get a decent amount, and you're going to stomp on them, and that's going to help open them up. We stomp on beans all the time, and that's going to crack open those pods if they haven't already popped. And then she's going to put them through a screen. We're using screens and household items. And then now she's stomping on something inside of a tub because it was cold and windy outside. My friend Kai does this all the time. And you're doing small batches, you can use your hands and just rub them in a bowl and then begin to separate the chaff from the seed. Here we're using a regular sieve from the kitchen. to push either the chaff through or the seed through. Some screens you do one way or the other, and there she is with clean seed going into a jar, and that's a real happy moment right there. That's a lot of seed you're looking at there, and it took a ton of work to get that seed clean. For you, for the home garden, you're going to be working with much smaller batches of seed. It's a delightful winter chore to clean seed. Sitting, listening to some music, sitting at the kitchen table. We used to throw dinner parties, and we would bring out dried seed for everyone to clean together, and we would all share the seed. It was so much fun. And then all the chaff goes out into the field so that any residual seed is going to get planted back out where it came from. And this is my property, so not all of those are me, but I'm trying to get more and more established there, so all the chaff is not wasted. These are screens in 8 different sizes. I get them at Strictly Medicinal Seeds, which is a wonderful company for every kind of medicinal plant there is. It's not from Colorado, but still, they're incredibly knowledgeable. And then my boys made the frames. So you can buy them with the frames, they're very expensive, or buy the screens and make your own frames, or you can use this stuff that you already have in your kitchen, right? You have all kinds of things that you can use already to clean seed. Here we are shaking seed through, and then maybe we might pour it into a different screen size and shake chaff through. It all depends on the size, and that little bit of seed is sometimes all it takes. This is a do-it-yourself seed aspirator. So you see there is a vacuum hose going into the top. That's a shop vac. There are plans online for this. We built it for $30. The 2 buckets underneath are there to catch, one is to catch the seed and one is to catch the chaff. Where the funnel is, you pour the seed and the chaff into the funnel. The heavy seed goes straight down into the bucket, and the vacuum pressure pulls the chaff over to the other side. But it doesn't pull the seed over, and nothing goes into the vacuum. It just creates the pressure. So you see there's holes at the back. Let's see. Oh, there she is working it. So these holes have a little flap that covers it. And my friend Kai, my friend and colleague Kai Doobie, who's in the audience. Hi, Kai. I miss you terribly. Kai went off and got a real job. And he has been the most amazing seed cleaner that has ever passed my seed room. And he knows how to operate this machine much better than I do, okay? So he took notes on what size screens to use and where to set the setting on closing those holes. You can close them a little, you can open them a little. Big seed needs it one way, tiny seed needs it another way. He draws a little picture of where he set that for every single wild seed variety for me. I bow down to him. Nobody can touch him. This guy, I'm sorry, Kai. It's just, I miss him. Okay. Anyway, that's it painted because the chaff stuck less. And so this is a really cool thing. And if you just Google seed aspirator plans, it's a company or it's a person in the UK that has them up for free. And it's a really fun little thing. If you have a garden club or a community of people that want to get together and clean their small batches of seed, there you go. Okay, anybody went to college in the 80s? This is how we clean seed. We, sorry. Yeah. So we're going to tip the tray, and round seed is going to roll down to the bottom, and the chaff is going to stay up. So when it's a small batch of something, like kale seed is very round, you'd crush it up on the tray. All you got to do is tip and shake that tray just a little bit, and all the round seeds are going to roll to the bottom, and all the chaff is going to stay up at the top. Really quick and easy way to clean seed. For small batches, of course, I do it all the time. Here, marigolds, it's just, you know, you could stomp on these, but there's a lot of chaff and a lot of petals. And if I just pull them out and make 3 piles, I got the empty pot, the empty little seed head, I got the seed, I've got the chaff, and out it goes. That's a super easy one. Sometimes it's just easier to do it by hand, especially when it's a small batch and you're just trying to get some seed out. Again, especially with aromatics in the winter, cleaning basil seed or dill seed, I mean, it could be worse, let me tell you. All right, there's a really easy winnowing basket. Lots of us have these from the 70s. They're not authentic, but they are still designed. We're going to put the corn on there, or big seed, and we're going to toss it in the air, in the breeze, and the chaff is going to blow away in the breeze. This is winnowing, okay? and here is Cord pouring the seed and the chaff in front of a fan. The heavy seed is going to fall into the tub, and the chaff is going to blow onto the tarp. You can do this in the wind too, but the wind has to be right. So, and you can also just blow on it. So these are ways we can do this.
Is the seed always heavier than the chaff?
No, right, Kai? Sometimes, but that seed aspirator, even the tiniest seed, it has an embryo in it. The chaff does not. So even when you think, no way, I have given him seed and gone, no way, is that seed aspirator going to separate? Because how can it when it's like dust? It's got an embryo in it. It's a living, breathing thing. So it has a weight. Kai, do you have any thoughts on this?
Give me your thoughts into the mic.
He's my expert, in-house expert.
So some seeds like yarrow, which it's like dust, and you'd think it would be just impossible. You start with the screen and you kind of get the heavy chaff off, and then with the aspirator, you can set it in there and set it just totally open, and it just is like magic. It's like just the seeds come through. But then with things like arnica, because it has that little parachute on it, setting that in the wind is a bad idea, because there goes all your seed. And same with like zinnias, those were really tough because they're flat and they got a little parachute. And yeah, so anything that has a parachute is actually harder to clean than something you can get a little seed off of a parachute. So
okay, thank you. And you know, for your home garden, it doesn't have to be as clean as my seed has to be. You're not selling it. In fact, you could just have the seed heads and go walk around your yard and crush them up and walk on them. So, but storage, you know, it's a lot more room for a bag of seed heads than it is one little jar of clean seed. So, but if you're only doing small batches of stuff, you don't have to have it perfect at all. You can plant the chaff right with it. That's what nature would do. It would plant the chaff with it and give it a little food. All right, this is any day in the seed room. The bags are going to come in. When I use plastic bags, I'm going to make sure they are open so no molding happens. But again, I also use brown paper bags all the time. And then it turns into this. And then you become an addict. And then you see seed everywhere. Everywhere you go, you see seed. And you're like, ooh, I'm going to put some of that in my pocket. Okay, and then this happens. But I mean, you know, I wasn't always a professional seed seller. I just did this for myself. And it is addictive. It's a really great addiction, too. All right, we're getting to the end. But this is the West Peak fire over by Walsenburg. When they burned over there, and these are friends of ours with one of our greenhouses, and this is the aerial shot. And I mean, this gives me chills. It makes me want to cry every time I see this picture, because how did that happen? I mean, it burned everything except their entire homestead. And a friend of theirs flew over and sent them this picture because they had evacuated. Can you imagine? It always chokes me up, sorry. So that's how close it came to their front yard. This was within weeks. This is what started to happen right away. And look at that green. Immediately starts to regenerate. Okay, now this picture always makes me cry. So in my hand, I'm holding the mighty bristlecone, the glorious ponderosa, and my dear elder friend, the pinon. Look at that. That's in my hand. Like, these are amazing plants. They're all medicine, they're all food for all kinds of creatures. I mean, there's a lot of power in there, okay? So these people went to the Forest Service and got the seedlings to reforest their forest, and they put them in, they lugged water to them, you know, and they sit there. But they went walking with their dogs, and they went and got pine cones. And every day that they walked their dogs, they would throw the pine cones in their forest. And those seeds grew trees twice as fast as those seedlings did. The seedlings had to learn. They had to adapt. They had to learn where they were. The seeds are adapting the minute they're born. They know what to do. This is when they're ready. Hunting season is when they're ready. There I am in my orange with my gun and my seed apron underneath it all. in my bags, looking down or looking instead of looking for elk. I'm like, well, I didn't get an elk, but I got some seed. So right as the cones are opening, before they're widespread open, is when the seed is about to drop out of those cones. These were at eye level, so I could take the bag and just shake the tree, and they fell right into my bag. You can also look on the ground, and you'll see them, but the critters are going to take them quickly. So once you watch them, this is the thing, you want to be observant, you want to be out there, you want to be looking. And they're just starting to open. This is the perfect time. Some of them may have already fallen, and some of them are going to fall in the bag, and some of them are going to miss and feed the critters. This is the piñón, and that sap is all around it. And as it opens, it pushes the sap out of the way and dries the sap, and they don't fall out of the cone until they're ripe. And each tree will throw that seed the same day of its own. Each individual tree, the seed will be ready, and all of a sudden it's falling. And I learned, God bless them, the Mexican community knows how to collect these seeds, and they taught me how to do this. There's different ways to do this, and this wonderful woman will come up and ask if they could collect on our property, and of course we would let them, and I would watch her, and you can tell the difference between ones that are full and ones that are empty. They have a burnished sheen to them. They have the oil from the nut is shown, and the others are dry and papery looking, and they don't have a seed in it. So when people put down tarps and shake the tree, they get the sap, they get the pine needles, they get the cones, they get the empty ones, they get the full ones, and then they got to sort all that. She handpicked only full seeds with a coffee can. She could do a whole coffee can, a gallon, you know, the old Folger cans, in an hour. So that was back when they were on a 7-year cycle. So I collected 7 coffee cans worth of pine nuts that year so that I had some for each year for the next 7 years. So that's how I do it. And when I sell you that seed, I weigh each one to make sure it's full. So you get 12 viable seeds. This is our grandfather or grandmother tree. We think it could be 1,000 years old. 2 people cannot get their arms around the base. It is not the state champion. It is just under the state champion. Maybe one day it will be the state champion. The tree house in it has no nails in the tree because I'm not putting nails in my grandparents, right? And my boys, you know, grew up in this tree. We sleep in this tree. And if it's 1,000 years old, then the indigenous families of this place, their children played in this tree, as well as mine, and we really honor this tree, let me tell you. And so the seed, the seed that you get from me is from this tree and its children that I collect off of our property. I just wanted to introduce you because, you know, and that is the hot spot to sleep when you come and stay at our place. Okay, remember La Vida Pass. Okay, this is La Vida Pass right after the fire. The first spring after the fire, this is fireweed. Fireweed is edible, medicinal, beautiful, and fragrant. And then it can do stuff. It can grow well. And then people go, oh, it's taking over. And I'm like, yay, again. Isn't it wonderful that this amazing, extraordinary plant is doing so well here? I stopped to pee on the summit of La Vida Pass and got out and went, oh, man, fireweed to the rescue to begin rebuilding this place from this amazing fire. That's what the seed looks like. And my friend Kai figured out how to separate the tiny seed on these parachutes. Get yourself good books on plants. No better place than from indigenous folks. This ethnobotany book is phenomenal. Every single plant like on the planet is in there. It is a wonderful book. All right, this was 21 in our meadow, and this is pony bee balm, Navajo tea, Rocky Mountain bee plant, fringed sage, blue grama. This is just eye candy. That's the cowpen daisy. And I mean, I will wax poetic over these plants. I will cry over these plants. I don't care if anybody sees me. It is really fun work. Okay? That's...
Hello.
I didn't mean to cry over the tree, but I can't help it.
Is Navajo tea also kota?
I think so.
I think so.
I
And
think
it's the
so,
little
yes.
yellow
Thank
flowered
you.
ones,
Yep.
yeah.
And it's not long lived, but it reseeds readily. And it has good years and it has years it waits. So it's a perennial, but they don't last long. Okay, please tell me, you have some questions, and I hog so much time, but I just want you to understand this work is love. This is love. We're all relatives with living things. The animals, the plants, and us, we have to work together in a harmonious way. And so I take the responsibility very deeply, and I hope you will too, because there is all this seed out there for you. You can enhance your life and enhance your gardens and bring in pollinators for your vegetable gardens by going out and getting seed. It is a wonderful thing to do. Seed is millions and millions and millions of more seed. Okay, there's got to be a question. Anything? Yes.
Yeah, there was a slide of some sort of composite right before the arnica in your presentation, and I didn't get the name of that.
I think it was Penn daisy, but let's see. Nobody pass out. Right before the arnica. You know, I took a lot of pictures out of this, so you guys, nope.
The wild pussy toes? No, or the Penn.
Ah, Bahia dissecta. Okay. It's a biennial. Some people are scared of biennials. I like it because they dance around the garden and they plant themselves where they want. Skyrocket Gilia is a biennial. It makes a rosette the first year, then it blooms, sets seed, and dies. Mullein, right, on the bleep list, which is such an amazing and important plant of medicine. It is a biennial. First it's going to make the rosette, then it's going to bloom, set seed, and die. So when you know how plants operate, then maybe you can relax a little bit if you're the kind of person that needs a very tidy garden. Then maybe wild seed isn't for you, and you create an area outside of your tidy garden to allow for these plants to thrive on their own and in their own way. You know, I'm not judging. I'm saying that they are not going to stay in their boundaries. They are going to go and they're going to drop seed, and they're going to grow where they want to grow. They're going to show you where the best place to grow them is. Okay. It was really fun. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. I really enjoyed this.